yeah, it would help to unmute myself. Welcome to FBS Stroke Fireball sessions in association with Language. Our first conversation presentation, and it's quite a special one. We're quite excited to be here. We have some special and important artists, guests to have this conversation, and more excitingly than anything else, we have the premiere screening of Not Nice, a short film by Kevin Morosky, who will join us afterwards for a conversation with MckNasty and Edem Wornoo, who is the director of the official and original music video. Before I start, I just want to give a little brief introduction to all of the artists involved. And forgive me, this is my first time moderating, and I think we're just going to keep this all very natural. So, I hope you enjoy the content, what you see, the art that's been created, and the conversation that will follow. Firstly, Firstly, I am going to introduce MckNasty. So I don't know how many of you know, but hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
Yeah, I'm good.
I think before we carry on, it's a little bit noisy in the background with you. I'm just going to check with Josh to just make sure that everyone can hear us clearly. All right, so yeah, MckNasty is obviously the source of this whole conversation. Not Nice was released back in August, and we'd like to introduce him and let him just talk a little bit about the process. The track Not Nice was released in August and on Fireball Music, which is also his label. It features Koji Radical and an artist called Laudable, and I will leave him to say a little bit more about that afterwards. But yeah, do you just want to say a bit about yourself?
My name's MckNasty. Thanks for having me here. Great honor. And I'm a musician, producer, songwriter, just musician extraordinaire. I'm trying to be the new school Quincy Jones and bring love, hope, and joy to the world through music. Yeah, man. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on to we're having a little bit of a technical issue with your sound. So I hope everybody who's watching, I'm sure you're all used to it by now, this new world of everything being online and on Zoom, and try as we might, sometimes we have a few of these little issues. So I'm just going to ask MckNasty to refresh before he rejoins the conversation. No, you'll have to refresh and rejoin. And in the meantime, I am going to introduce Edem. Edem, what are you saying?
Yo, what's good, people?
Hello. Yeah, I'm Hello. Good, thanks. Thank you. I know you were talking to the people generally, but I include myself in that. So yeah, sure. I'm good. How you been?
Yeah, I've been good. Thank you very much. Just been plugging away at life, surviving.
Yes, that's it, right? That's what we have to do in this time.
How have you been?
I guess pretty much the same. I'm a bit sometimes I have to ask myself, how have I been? Because you just kind of get your head down and get on with it, right? And these times are not normal in so many ways. But I think it shows great resilience that we can just get on with stuff as well, right? And just keep trying to produce the positive that we can in the world around us. Introduce yourself, please. Say a little bit about who you are, a little bit about what you do. We'll get into more detail a bit further on in the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm a British Ghanaian writer-director based in the south of London, and I make music videos. Shouts
Yeah,
to
I
South.
didn't want to throw. I was like, shouting out south, but I don't want to throw up anything too deep. So I was just like, yeah, let me just keep it here. But yeah, I think we're all from South London on this chat tonight.
Oh, amazing. There's something in the water.
Well, kind of. MckNasty is officially actually from East, but you know, when the source is in South, you got to come South for the source. So, yeah. So then I guess that brings me to my other South London brother, Kevin Morosky. What you saying?
Not much. Like, imagine not being from South. Like,
that's what I keep saying.
Sorry. Imagine.
I keep saying.
Like, how do you even function?
I think we'll have to ask MckNasty how.
Yeah.
I know he came south in it, like.
Yeah.
So that's maybe how they do it. They sneak over the border and. What are you saying?
Nothing much. What am I doing? Introing myself?
Yeah, intro yourself. Please tell everybody who you are, a little bit about what you do.
I am a South Londoner. That's important. I'm from Croydon, Thornton Heath, so that should give you an inkling into my temperament.
Oh, I live in Pollard Hill, if you know what that is.
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah, man.
I knew there was a connection between you two before I even clocked that. And when I clocked that, I was like, oh, what have I done?
A real recognised real, trust me. Yeah, South Londoner, Virgo, and I guess I do bits. I'm just creative in it. I think I was very much a photographer, and then started making shorts and films, and then everybody in the industry pissed me off because of their nonsense. So I just stopped. For a very long time, I stopped making stuff publicly. I just wanted to do it for myself. And then I went off and like learned advertising, and was in that space for a long time, upsetting people and telling them about their BCs. And yeah, and now I'm in a space where I'm like, I'm more than happy to kind of tell stories again and just do it for the sake of doing it. Well, not for the sake of doing it, but doing it for myself publicly, I guess. And I'm not really bothered about accolades and numbers and things like that. I'm just interested in telling stories. And I think, yeah, I guess that couldn't have happened without that kind of little sabbatical of just like chilling for a second and being like, what is this? Why am I doing this? Who is it for? Etc. etc. So yeah, just a creative road youth, let's say that. Okay,
I like that description. I might have to take that from you, even though, see, like, it's so funny. Sometimes I introduce myself. I'm going to be moderating this whole conversation, and some of you might not know me much at all and why I feel the need to be in here and have so much to say. But we've already said I'm from South in it, so that kind of goes without saying. And sometimes I can like temper my South London for the sake of, you know, certain environments, and it's a very interesting conversation, that kind of idea of being a comedian in the world and where the need to be able to do that has come from, you know. And I guess that speaks to some of the content that we might discuss tonight. Maybe it'll come up. I have a list of questions, but who really knows where this conversation's gonna go? Yes, MckNasty, we got you back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, and much better, much clearer.
Was man like on some Teddy Riley business? Like can you hear me?
Yeah, almost. You were about to get sent for, and in your absence, we just established that.
No, I heard that part. Don't okay. Listen.
Bruv, listen, I said it with my whole chest, so
listen.
Like,
we all said it with our chest, so it's okay.
Like. Yeah?
It's okay. Yeah? We recognize.
We all know that the Holy Ghost dwells down in East London. We already know this.
Let me just ask you a question. Where are you now?
In East London, right now.
Oh, and then how did the internet come from East London? How did you enter this chat? Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Whole metaphor.
All right. We'll keep this banter going throughout, but let's actually
compose myself.
Do you know what I mean? People didn't come on here to see all of this. They came for serious conversation. There's serious things going on in the world right now.
Yeah, there are. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, do you want to just say something now you've joined us, just quickly about yourself?
Hey, how's it going? It's a pleasure to be here with such amazing people. Kevin Morosky, I love you so much. You're such a special person. And young Edem. Edem's like this genius, like he's like this Zen. He's got this poker face and the wonderful Umpa. My love, my heart.
My God, we could have left that bit out of the
man,
conversation.
We're alive.
Yeah, we are, right? And we're all grateful for it. Okay, so to the business. You can find the song Not Nice on all major platforms. It's out. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. It's on MckNasty's Bandcamp, which you can also find. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that later because we've actually got some merch for you that's coming very soon, which we're looking forward to and quite excited about sharing with you all. So I'm going to plug some stuff tonight. We do need to make some money out here as artists, especially from where we come from. It's important that we find ways to create revenue to sustain what we consider to be important work for the world, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. MckNasty, how did this song come about?
So basically, we had spent a bit of time in South Africa, doing a few bits with yourself, and Koji happened to be in town, and we cut like a few records, and we was hanging out and kind of getting to know each other a bit. And when we came back to England, it was time for me to kind of get involved and kind of get my record going. And I just felt like making a record that consisted around drums, which I do, and jazz music, which in like the lane I was trying to kind of like pursue in terms of my music, even though like it's a lot broader than just one specific thing. I mean, jazz is broad anyway. That's a big conversation, but whatever. But yeah, I just felt like I needed to express a piece of music that spoke from the drums and spoke from a vocal. Yeah. And my whole idea around it was that like the drums and the vocals are having a conversation, just like we'll be on the block and we're just talking about stuff and we'll reason. Some of the older boys will talk to the young boys, some of the young boys will talk to the older boys. Yeah, but I need this advice or blah blah. It was one of those kind of things. And I just felt like I needed a voice that would like transcend past the music, something that had a tone to it. And Koji's voice like came to mind. He's got a very distinctive tone in his voice.
Yes.
Also being young, and like just like he's just got a vibe. Like I feel like his words and his wordplay is like beyond his actual age, and I find that very interesting. And then I love the way he brings in like this new school young energy to such grown-up language, if you like. And I felt like it was the best thing to call him in. And we spoke about, our parents, how we grew up in Hackney. He's from Hoxton. I'm from Hackney. Do you know what I mean? In Clapton. I
don't know why, but I keep seeing him looking like he's in South when I see him on his Insta sometimes. Anyway, aside from that, I remember you and Koji having a conversation about the language and where that language came from, and I'm just raising it because I'm gonna raise it, and Kevin has raised it in his film, which you'll see later as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really relevant. So, how did Laudable get involved?
Well, Laudable, he's from South Africa. Again, he's from Johannesburg originally. And the way he grew up like, I don't like calling them slums because like they don't feel like slums to me, but like it's not necessarily like where I grew up like around in Hackney, yeah, for instance. I have to give this like this difference, yeah? So I grew up in Hackney, and there were certain places in Hackney that you would go that, like, there'll be, like, gang violence, there'll be, like, all kinds of things could just happen at any point. There's people selling drugs, there's people, like, doing mad stuff, right? So those kind of areas in Johannesburg, yeah, don't look as lush as our areas being in England, yeah?
Comparatively, yeah.
Comparatively. So it's the same kind of stuff happening.
But the culture, what's happening in those spaces is the same.
Right, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
So,
and I think all of us on this talk right now can identify with
sure,
coming from spaces like that or
absolutely,
experienced in those spaces.
Exactly. So my thing was, I wanted to get another definition from the other side of the world, yeah, and basically make the comparison and say that, like, it's not no different to what's going on in your slums, in my hood, in somebody else's in America's, somebody in, like, you know, like, it's just happening. It's all the same thing, and we're all just trying to, like, come up and make ourselves better. Like, we're coming from single parent homes, like, or we're coming from where mum and dad is at the house, but mum's gone to work and mum doesn't know what I'm doing during the day. When dad gets back home, he goes to bed because he has to get up for work. And I'm not really being interactive with my parents. Like, we, like, being two kids, you see eye to eye, you're like, yeah, but my mum's not about neither. Like, you know what I mean? Even though, like, technically your parents are together. Like, so we was having all of these conversations and trying to get the different comparisons, like.
Okay, so but before that, how did you even find Laudable? Where did you
right? So I was on Koji's page. He put out, like, this challenge, yeah. This, like, I've forgotten the tune that it was, but he put out this challenge, yeah. And there was a bunch of rappers that were, like, putting up stuff and singers and blah blah blah. And Laudable happened to put up something, yeah. And I heard him rapping, and I was like, "Yo, Coach, who is this cat?" Because by this time we had already recorded the drums and the vocals for me and Koji. Like, we had already done it. For me, it was, like, wrapped up. It was, like, between MckNasty and Koji. That was it. But then I heard this kid, and I was like, yo, like, I feel like he's got an energy and he's got something to say. So Koji was like, well, shout him. So I hit him up. I was like, dude, like, I think you're so super dope. Like, how can I, like, get your digits or whatever so that I want you to jump on a record, like, with Koji. And he was like, bro, it's like, is this me winning the competition or something? I was just like, nah, I think you're sick, innit? Like, so I think Laudable, like, saw an opportunity to get onto a record with somebody that he admired, like, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And obviously, like, the story and the kind of whole concept of how it was. So I had to then chop up where Koji was so that we could kind of input Laudable so that the conversation could be broader. So there's certain times in the record where you hear Laudable, like, cut in. Like it sounds like Koji's not finished just yet. Yeah? And it's like Laudable's just kind of cutting, and that was kind of like purposefully done to, like, make it feel like a conversation. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the time, and I feel like it's just flying by already. We're gonna have a watch of Edem's video and listen to the song.
Sure.
This video's been out. It came out shortly after the track was released. If you haven't seen it yet, now's the time to watch it, and then we'll talk a bit more about the track and this video shortly after.
Weed crumbling, palms out. Mama wish I put the drugs down and pulled Psalms out. Youngers getting younger, tennis stripped to the Gaza. Dying for your ends will never make you a martyr. Relax. Only running from gold diggers and tax man. Strip with the money, another black man. Gang banging, throwing the setup, I let my nuts hang. Strip with the hunger, another gun bang. Yeah. Sick with the fungus to your suntan. Strictly in the city to take it over with one hand. One man's pleasure means another man's trust. And we all know who's bitten when the bet takes the black man. Another hashtag, another black man. Who got the answer? Pull up the stats, fam. Now I'm nice, the way they treat my people, boy, not nice. Some of the money got me hypnotized. Street turn red like a summer night. I just wanna see another summertime. Still I think you're in the morning. Even when the blessings are calling, I just wanna see another summertime. Yeah. I pull out the ladle, dish out the backhand, serving revenge, brain in advance. God will give it. The boys, the world sinner, a madman. World's a lot quicker to act rash. Is it a lot easier to kill him these days than it is to keep him in the system? These days, got a million views. That's where the dash camp. See no evil, hear no evil. Like what's going on outside? Relax. Send the choppers, the uppers run out the back. Couple dogs doing double for a weed charge. Numbers told me I spit bars or see bars. Blue lights, bright nights, fast cars. Nothing promised when you living with them past scars. Now I'm nice, the way they treat my people, boy, not nice. Some of the money got me hypnotized. Street turn red like a summer night. I just wanna see another summertime. Still I think you're in the morning. Even when the blessings are calling, I just wanna see another summertime. Yeah, I can feel the paranoia tempting me. Please don't let them pacify my energy. Whoa, I can feel the paranoia tempting me. Yeah, please don't let them pacify my energy. Whoa, yeah. Cause if it ain't you, then who's fixing the cracks? If it ain't true, then who's sending it back? Who's bidding on being a bigger part of the plan? Who's bidding on being a better father than dad? Who's bidding on me? Hey, breaking out the cycle of corruption. I'll show you how to turn it into substance. I'll tell you how I know. My mother didn't know without a husband and told me I could do it on my own. Yeah. Pleading for fiction, we might relapse. When I face my demons, they meet their match. Could have been you, I could have been that guy. Splash on my enemy, even bad time. Avalanche energies at the landslide. Sharing hypocrisies at the campsite. Salvaging memories from a past life. Scars you can only see in the black light. When love is the only thing that can separate you from being a part of a murdering in your bad times. Cause everyone gets a choice and I chose to be less about the pursuit of existence beyond mankind, yeah. When even the shaking your hand, feeling mistaken for man, easy to blow on that land, man, yeah. And this ain't a secret of plan either. More like a list of demands, pure Peruvian black, yeah. Now I'm nice, the way they treat my people, boy, not nice. Some of the money got me hypnotized. Street turn red like a summer night. I just wanna see another summertime. Still I think you're in the morning. Even when the blessings are calling, I just wanna see another summertime.
Bloody hell, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah. Edem. Yeah. Edem, you killed that. You absolutely
Crazy.
killed that. So when we first were looking for a director, you just worked on another music video with MckNasty for FBS release featuring Jess Malley, and she'd asked you to come and do the Young Kings video. You can find the Young Kings video on the Fireball Music FBS YouTube channel if you haven't seen it already. And it's also really beautiful, but there's such different pieces, which was great to see, that. So, you know, MckNasty was like, yep, I want to work with Edem. And Takiva, who we also work with, had reached out to you to be like, we're looking for a director. I'd reached out to a few people. I reached out to Kevin and was like, what are you saying? Would you be up for treating for this track that we're about to release? And for a minute, he was a bit slow coming back to me at first. And I was like, yeah, have you listened to the track yet? And then when he came back, he was like, listen, stop. Don't play this to anybody else. Don't ask no one else. I'm doing this video in a very Croydon, South London kind of way. I was like, rah, okay. Well, we've actually already reached out to a few other people and I'm just waiting for treatments back. And I was like, but you know, you're my boy. I got you. Like, just drop the thing. He's like, right, give me to the end of the day. And he came back with an incredible treatment. And I was like, okay, cool. Nope, not that one. We'll show that one in a second. But literally, I think almost simultaneously, Edem sent his treatment, and I was like, oh, what do we do now?
Yeah.
If you know anything about South London, what you do not want to do is just start unnecessary beef like, between anybody. So, and I definitely didn't want to be like handling it on either side. But when Edem's treatment came through, I was just like, this is incredible. We can show Edem's treatment, and it'd just be good to like talk through a bit, Edem, you know, what the song said to you when you heard it and how you arrived at your initial kind of interpretation in the treatment, and the video that we've just seen. And they're quite different. Like what I was expecting from the treatment, it isn't exactly what we arrived at, but I can still see that same story reflected and the power that was originally, the power that was kind of originally expressed in the treatment.
Yeah, I think like, so for me, when I listened to it, and I guess the through line and the sentiment that I took away from it was that there are certain hardships that Black people disproportionately face to other people, especially where we're from in the UK. And I didn't initially think about myself. I thought about my parents, because growing up, I've seen them, and like most kids, you see your parents as these like larger than life people, like these demigods. And so as I started to grow up, I started to see the way that other people treated them, and I started to hear about the way that other people treated them, about like how my mum would be at work and people would speak to her differently because she has an accent. They'll shout at her and talk to her in a way that she seems like she's kind of stupid. Or I'll be on the phone to my dad and he's trying to do business deals, but because he has an accent, I can hear the way that they talk to him, like, and they already kind of have an association, a preconception about his intelligence because of his accent, for example. And my friends that I grew up around that when they get any car, to be fair, but like if they have a nice car, especially, the police are pulling them over saying, yo, you're not insured on this, like step out the car, this is that. So I've seen all of these ways in which people are treated, and I thought, you know what, like what's really important for me right now is to look at the way that my parents were treated. And this is what I want to tell the story for. I want to dedicate this video to my parents. So I thought, how can I best show this journey from them being in a place where they are so, I guess, widely accepted and loved? Being Africa, my parents are from Ghana, and they moved here when they were already adults. So I think like the experience of them having to go through all of these hardships was a new thing for them. It was a new struggle for them. And so I think that's where the main character comes from. He's that person that has come from a land where he's accepted and loved, and he has everything stripped away from him piece by piece throughout the rest of the video. And you start to see how somebody who is so royal and so regal can be downtrodden by a system, and the after effects of that, how that can affect a person's mental health and the way in which they relate to other people. So you start to see this main character gradually unraveling. His character changes because of what he's been through. And I think like there's probably deeper conversations about like mental health and so on and so forth, but at the very least that's a level of PTSD that I don't think we've had language for until now. And so I think like a lot of the time, someone like me with my parents, we can be very critical of them, we can not be able to relate to them, but at the same time, I think it is important for us to be able to look at their journey, look at what they've been through, and be able to have a level of empathy because they've been through so much being here. And
I love this line in your treatment that says the character, he is the Windrush generation, every immigrant, every refugee. I think that line really spoke to me when I read it. Like it kind of really touched something. It's something that like I felt like there are so many shared stories and shared experiences, and the fact that this track spoke of that, this track was essentially about that, like these different shared experiences around the world. And that feeling of displacement can happen even in the place that you come from, right? But it's even more like the feeling is huge when you've had to leave the place that you come from. And then I guess there's like the second generation where there's that feeling of displacement where you are not from somewhere else, but you're still made to feel like that. Right? And how deeply that narrative can go. Yeah. Yeah, so how did you get from this treatment? Because one of the things I loved about this treatment was just the colors, how rich the colors were. So obviously it went from that to a video that like it didn't have all that color in it. Like apart from the character and the fruit, do you know what I mean? Like the set and that, like I was like, okay, how did that happen? Because that starkness and that kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm forgetting the word. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
The starkness and the contrast of that I thought was incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And very symbolic as well.
Yeah. There's something to be said about the skin color. The skin color is very important, and it was very important for the lead to be a certain skin color, and for me to be able to kind of like exaggerate the richness of his skin tone. And I think like the decision to have it against white walls does that perfectly. And I think our skin is something that is, I guess, so integral to that struggle, because I guess no one knows that you're black until you're, I guess, like you're exhibiting external features of blackness.
Yeah.
And so like I just really wanted to be able to kind of have that as something that is also stripped away, and it is something that you can't ignore because it is against white. And it's kind of like, I guess it works out with it being like somebody that has come from a world of color and they're brought into a world where everyone is predominantly white, and they stand out against that, and they don't really have any choice against that. And through different mechanisms, which there's probably, I don't know if this is a good time to talk about, but there's one scene which is like probably like really important to me within it, wherein he's having like the paint put on his face.
Yeah.
Like the way in which that's being done is very important to me, because I think like
it wasn't intended for us to show that slide, but I'm just gonna see if we can get that slide up.
Yeah, sure. I'll continue to talk until then.
Keep talking until it comes up.
But like I was raised in a Christian household, and I feel like the Christianity that was presented to me, that was presented to my parents, was a very white spirituality, that didn't acknowledge anything else that came before that.
Yeah.
And so the fact of the matter is, if I were to accept that wholeheartedly with everything that I'd been taught, that would mean that everybody that was from where I was from prior to colonialism would have been a godless person, because Christianity came with the British people and the Dutch, so on and so forth. And so when you see that first cross written on his forehead as he's praying, and you see that first cross put on his forehead, that's like kind of like a white cross, and then it starts to take over the rest of his skin, and it's uncomfortable, and he's now wiping that away, but the hands aren't leaving him alone. It's kind of like a real show of like how a lot of things, from like religion to culture to whatever else, is used and weaponized against black people to be able to kind of take away and diminish our culture.
Yeah. Sure.
And I think like it's not something that it's not like you're either accepting of this religion or you're black. I think like I went back, and there's no way that anyone can tell me that these people that have lived here were without God before these people that enslaved them came and introduced whatever to the land. So I think that was where like the colors came into it, and it was kind of like all metaphorical, but like that was just a little exclusive that I've never really spoken about, but I wanted to.
Yeah, no, it's important to hear that. I think there was so much symbolism in the treatment, and then the way that you interpreted that in the final piece was incredible, despite the fact that like aesthetically they had quite a different look. The look between the treatment and the final thing were quite different. I think that the symbolism was really powerful, and that kind of idea of blackness really showing itself in the context of whiteness. You know, I know for a lot of African people, especially people of African descent, they're like, I didn't know I was black until I was amongst white people. Do you get what I mean? I was just African. I didn't. It wasn't a thing. And I think that that's a really important thing to acknowledge, is what that means in the way that blackness and the narrative of blackness has been painted, and what we as artists are doing now to redefine that. And I think that's, you know, incredibly important part of this conversation, of the music and of both the films that we're talking about. Kevin, what did you think when you saw the film? How did you feel when you saw that music video? As a director, as a
as a director, like I thought it was like sharp and on like a level, like there was just a level of like what is the word I'm looking for? It's not artistry, but just delivery, like the grade, the things that you look for as a like, you know, it's like no one can't talk wicked to Edem. Like it's very clear he has a vision, he knows what he's doing. Do you know what I mean? So that side, but then I think just as a black man, just like I know like people unaware or like not part of our culture, regardless of which part of the diaspora you're from. There's little things I won't clock. So even the shopping bags that he put in on, like some people,
so symbolic. That was such a huge symbol for me.
Proper.
Yeah, 100%, and in a interesting way, in a loving way. Because on one hand, it is some week washing machine weren't working. We all had to go laundrette.
Bro.
Right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like that's the thought that we're using to play in and mess around with, and then we get told off for mashing up. All of these things, like they just mean all these different things. And I was like, bang, got it. The painting on the face, like, yeah, there was a point where I was absolutely dragged to church every Sunday until about 10 and constantly questioning, spoken about before, but like these stained glass windows are mad cute, but where are the black angels? I'm confused what's going on here. Why are we just in this house of whiteness, to be honest? Like I don't understand, like none of it makes sense, but then all the elders are like fully dedicated and in love with this religion. And then when you break it down, it's like, but this religion was introduced to there's always been spirituality, and there's always been we've always had spirituality, and we've always had our beliefs and traditions, but they definitely were colonized and whitewashed along the way. And so I think a lot of us have been on the journey of like completely stepping away from a religion and then coming back and deconstructing it to understand what it actually means for us and how it can represent us. And if that means that you end up still in the faith, cool. And if it means you end up like me, who is just fully spiritual and I'm interested in everybody's religion and everyone's energy, cool. But prior to that, you definitely can end up in a space where you instinctively and accidentally as in via you, but not by the people that are imprinting it upon you, start to hate your own. And start moving mad and like doing all of these things. So for me, watching it, like there were so many levels, and I love art that instinctively talk to us first. I love art that is a love letter by us, to us, for us, and I think that's what Edem did, like all the way through. Yeah, it's dope.
Thank you, man.
No, all good for sure. And then, yeah, in terms of, I think when we got to, obviously Edem sent through his thing, but in my head, like, I just wanted to continue the energy of what Josh had done in the music, which is, that music is a conversation, but it's also three black men given to each other and supporting each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hold that thought. I'm coming to that.
All right.
I'm coming to that. No, I'm just aware of the time, and I just want to make sure we cover these things. So hold that. I'm coming to you in a second about that. Josh, quick, MckNasty. Yeah. What were your first? What was your initial feeling when you saw that film, that video?
Like, okay, so growing up at school, I hung out with a lot of Nigerian boys, and the Ghanaian boys, yeah, right? That were, yeah, they would have been first generation English born here from their parents, yeah, or had older brothers and sisters that were born abroad and they were first born here, right? So I remember my friend, two friends, one was Ghanaian, one was Nigerian, and we went on a school trip or something, and one of them brought one of those bags, yeah. And my Nigerian friend said, "Where you going with your Ghana must go bag?" Yeah, and I was like, "Bro, what does that mean?" Yeah, and it's like this banter, from what I understood of the thing, of like, yeah, like we ran you out of our country and da 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 da. And I was like, "Bro, like that's mad." Like, so when did this happen or whatever? And it's like no one's really like talking the facts of it. It's just like man's just cussing each other and that. Yeah. And I'm like, "Bro, that's mad." Like, because
you're not recognizing it's a real thing in history.
Yeah, like I'm not recognizing it as a real thing. I'm like, yo, like we use that to go laundrette, like, so, like, raw, like, but then the stigma of like, oh, man must go is like, now I started to feel a little bit embarrassed to like take this bag to go and do laundry, because does it mean that I'm like poor and like I don't have anything, or like just because I don't have a washing machine at home kind of thing? Like what does it all mean? Like it played on my mind. I didn't really think about it in a deep way, but like just based on the banter. So when I saw that as one of the first shots in the video, I was just like, wow. Like, so it's not just me as a Caribbean. It's not just Edem as a Ghanaian. It's not just like, you know, it's like, that's everyone. Like,
and it simultaneously represents displacement and home. Right. I think that's the thing about that Ghana bag. You know, everyone calls it a Ghana bag. Like, I think a lot of people know it as a Ghana bag and might not know why it's called that. And you know, even in its history or the history of its naming, it simultaneously represents being displaced and home.
Right.
And I think that was a really like powerful use of that symbol. And I think, yeah. All right. I'm just cautious of the time because I'm really enjoying this conversation and I feel like we could keep talking all night. But I know that the audience or those people watching, and you know, then maybe it's a part 2. Maybe there's another way that we continue to have this conversation. But so 1 second. I think that we should just really go to the premiere screening.
Definitely.
Kevin has taken time to make this work. And when we first saw the treatment, do you want to just talk a little bit about the treatment and the idea before we show the film? Or do you want to just cut to the chase and show the film?
Let's go straight to the film and then just talk after.
Okay. Let's do that. Yeah, I won't say any more then.
This instrument, which originated in West Africa, was used as a strategic device to keep the Maroons forewarned of the approach of enemies. Even today, the tonal language of the Abeng can be used to signal emergency, but more often it is used to call the Maroons to assembly. The language of the Abeng is a Maroon secret. Signals for war, carried down from previous generations, have not been forgotten.
Weed crumbling, palms out. Mama wish I put the drugs down and pulled psalms out. Youngers getting younger, tennis stripped to the Gaza. Dying for your ends will never make you a martyr. Relax.
I wish people explain to us as youths growing up, the English class can actually pay the bills.
Real
talk.
If
you think about someone like Kano, someone like yourself, even someone like Jay-Z is where he is. And what separates him from every other drug dealer turned rapper is command of the English language.
100%.
Another dude will say, I got so much money. He'll say, we'd rather die enormous than live.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. That's the difference, 100%. And it's funny that you even say that because me and Wretch had the same English teacher.
Michael Gove is today battling to save his to become the country's next prime minister, following scrutiny over his history of cocaine use. The former Justice Secretary denied that his drug usage as a young journalist had been a habit, though he was accused of hypocrisy over articles he wrote condemning those who took the drug.
What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You always told me it takes time. It's taken my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brother's and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephews' time. How much time do you want for your progress?
Liquor in my daddy's stomach. Every night he drowns in something silver. Tongue whip it, and my mama say she good for nothing.
There was something in the message of Christianity. There was something in the religion of the oppressors that they saw that was deeper than even the oppressor's presentation of that. I mean, for example, the slaves had this saying that there must be another Bible within that Bible.
They're the songs that freed us, they liberated us, they give us joy and sadness even. I think those songs got the slaves over in many cases, or kept them encouraged. The fact that they could sing them, was they create. They do so much for us. I know personally, when I sing or hear spiritual, they're so uplifting. They just make me happy and joy. So I'm thinking we do the same for the youngsters if they really heard.
Yeah. Weed crumbling palms out. Mama wish I put the drugs down and pulled psalms out. Youngers getting younger, tennis stripped to the Gaza. Dying for your ends will never make you a martyr. Relax. Only running from gold diggers and taxman. Strip with the money, another black man. Gang banging, throwing the setup, I let my nuts hang. Strip with the hunger, another gun bang.
Yeah. Sick with the fungus, strip to your suntan. Strictly in the city to take it over with one hand. One man's pleasure means another man's trust. And we all know who's bitten when the bet's against the black man.
Another hashtag, another black man. Who got the odds to pull up the stats, fam?
Now I'm nice, the way they treat my people, boy, not nice. Show about the money, got me hypnotized. Street turn red like a summer night. I just wanna see another summertime. Still I think joy in the morning. Even when the blessings stop calling. I just wanna see another summertime.
I think what you're trying to ask is, why am I so insistent upon giving out to them that blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture? I think that's what you're asking. I have no choice over it. In the first place, to me, we are the most beautiful creatures in the whole world, black people. I mean, and I mean that in every sense, outside and inside. And to me, we have a culture that is surpassed by no other civilization, but we don't know anything about it. So again, I think I've said this before in the same interview. I think at some time before, my job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook or crook to get more aware of themselves and where they came from and what they are into and what is already there, and just to bring it out. This is what compels me to compel them. And I will do it by whatever means necessary.
Yeah, I pull out the ladle, ditch out the backhand, serving revenge, praying in advance, God will forgive him. The boy's a real sinner, a madman. The world's a lot quicker to act rash, cause it's a lot easier to kill him these days than it is to keep him in the system. Replays got a million views.
That's where the dash cam. See no evil, hear no evil, with some blood back. What's going on outside? Relax. Send the choppers, the uppers run out the back. Couple dogs doing double for a weed charge. Numbers told me I spit bars or see bars. Blue lights, bright nights, fast cars. Nothing promised when you living with them past scars.
You made a lot of money out of the music.
Money. I mean, how much is a lot of money?
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you made, say, millions of dollars?
No.
Are you a rich man?
What do you mean rich? What do you mean?
Do you have a lot of possessions? A lot of money in the bank?
Position make you rich? I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life forever.
Something new and ugly raises its head in Britain. In Notting Hill Gate, only a mile or two from London's West End, racial violence. An angry crowd of youths chases a Negro into a greengrocer shop. while police reinforcements are called up to check the riot, one of many that have broken out here in a few days. The injured victim, a Jamaican, is taken to safety. But the police have not been able to reach all the trouble spots so promptly.
Now I'm nice, the way they treat my people, boy, I'm nice. Some of the money got me hypnotized. Street turn red like a summer night. I just wanna see another summertime. Still I think joy in the morning. Even when the blessings stop calling. I just wanna see another summertime.
Yeah, protect black women. Ha! Protect black women. Hey, protect black women.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I feel like that means there's a little pause moment.
Wow.
Yeah. Kevin.
Yeah.
My G. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. I feel like let's just
wow.
Yeah. How did you arrive? Obviously, it's not a traditional music video, and I think the fact that when we decided that we were gonna go with Edem's film for the music video, it gave you room to play with the music in a different way. You want to just talk a little bit about how you arrived at this idea and this interpretation of the track, and and the use of the music in the way you did?
I think that the first thing was that Edem had done his thing, and I think throughout this whole project, it's been about collaboration, right? It's been about us supporting each other. So like when you said like Edem had done like a treatment and you loved it, I was like, bet, like let Edem do it and let him know that like if you need me to help, I don't care if that's
quite threatening to come around my yard with a mandem if I played it to anybody else in the first set.
I fully did. I fully went on Gully and then like was like, but then you said you had like this young cat who had like done this treatment and you loved it and it was banging. I was like, bet, like let him do it. Like I can always do other things. So I shot like the artwork, and I was like, also like I can make a short on this because I love the message is important and that's where I'm meant to be. I think there is something about when we talk about colonization and living in Babylon that everything has to be a certain way and there's not enough space for all of us and we all have to war with each other. And there is that thing about we're all crabs in the bucket, but no one ever talks about the bucket not being the crab's natural environment in the rotted first place.
Wow.
And do you understand? And it's just like rare. So it's like, okay. So like for me, you lot said you loved Edem's thing, and I was like, cool. Then like I read Edem's thing, and I was like, this is banging. Like, please let him know I will fully be a runner.
Wow.
Like, no long thing, not bothered at all. And then I instinctively already knew, like, because the full track is what, nearly 8 minutes, is it?
Yeah, the full track is like,
So I think that's where it came from, because I was like, I kind of knew Edem wasn't going to do a full 8-minute kind of video. I was texting it in that way. So I was like, oh, actually, I can just go off and make a thing. So that bangs, because then the music video can come out and then we can have this thing that like dissects it a little bit more and goes to different things and touches on this relationship and how we all got introduced. So when I used the Bob Marley voiceover bit about like, my life is this, la 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 la, I'm actually talking about the space that was created for me and Edem to like make our own thing, but for it to come together. If not, it wasn't a money thing at all or anything like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was more about like, oh, how do we amplify this conversation? Because they don't want us to talk in this way to each other, and they don't want us to have a space where we open up talks like this and Josh is like, I love you, I love you. For me to say back to Josh like, "Rah, I'm just a mirror." You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
they don't. That doesn't compute. When actually at home, when Edem is like chilling with like his dad's, I don't know if you have any brothers or not, or like your family. It's all jokes and love. It's the most peaceful place in the world. Are you mad? Like Disneyland has nothing on us. So like this narrative of just like we're out here doing the maddest of things. It's like it's not really us unless backed into the corner. And so I think throughout that whole thing, that whole short, I just wanted to like break away the parts of the song that really, really spoke to me, and other things that were about like the Nina Simone bit. Like that's what I feel like this song was trying to do when it talks about the spirituals. Like, I know there are people that sit at home and don't understand the joy of listening to a Little John get low, and how there can be like a real spiritual experience. I know that song is wild. I understand the lyrics, but there is a thing of us just like, there's something. And I think also there is a real thing of like, when we say, "Oh, my ancestors told me," I really do think people think that's just a saying, as opposed to, no, I'm actually telling you, I spoke to my ancestors. I had a feeling. I felt a voice to me to do this right thing.
Sure.
Because you cannot murder millions of people like that and not think that kind of carnage and pure evil doesn't leave some kind of mark on this earth that we can connect back to.
It lives forever, boy.
So that's where that kind of film came from. It was just like Edem was already doing his thing, and I felt like I could do something where that didn't interrupt him, because there was more than enough space for both of us to do things.
Absolutely.
And in the space that I was tackling, it was just breaking apart different bits and bringing in bits and bobs of like the backing track, and like then bringing back in one verse and this and that, and just relaying it, and the way that we all kind of like talk to each other. Because I think when talking to you about the track, Josh, it was very much, you were talking about the way that we talk on the street corner,
right?
And I like the idea of visually trying to do that, and like there's these bits and bobs that I don't really care if like somebody not from any part of the diaspora watches that and doesn't understand what's going on. That's cool, because I wasn't talking to you in the first place.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but
very fully answers the question. I'm just going to ask a quick question to all three of you. Please keep it quick because we don't have much time left. I'm asking if we can extend it. I don't know if people want to stay hanging on listening. I'm just getting on with the conversation because I really feel like it's important and I'm liking how it's going. I don't know if you guys are cool to do that for a bit, but I know that all three of you work with, so just kind of following on from what you were just saying, all three of you work with, maybe not on this song for you, Josh, but I know that you all work with white collaborators, white people that you work with in your work. How does that work for you when your work is so focused on blackness?
For me personally, I don't work
and
with
by collaborators, I don't just mean like, oh, there happens to be like, I don't know, a company that wants you. I don't mean like that. I mean like people who are actually part of your working process and help you to deliver your vision.
So I think like in terms of me, like in terms of like advertising, and I have a whole creative partner who's a very much a middle class like white man, but he completely understands his privilege and understands the things that I'm talking about. I've never once had to instruct him to talk up on my behalf or had to check him on anything at all. Like I've never had to recommend like a book to read or any of those things. I'm not saying that he deserves a blue Peter badge. I'm just saying he doesn't read mad. So therefore it worked easily. And I think that's the same with any kind of anybody in my life that isn't from my culture. Like they have to have like common sense, and if they don't, then it's not a space that I need to be in because it's dangerous. And yeah, when I make these pieces of work or talk in the way that I need to talk about the things that are going on and talking facts, so how could you argue with that? It's better. It must be you're a dickhead if you're arguing with me about the history of this planet and the things that have gone on.
Yeah.
It must be that you want me to spin your jaw if you're trying to deny the history of the
London.
yeah,
Yeah.
like on the real. So it's like for me, it's not a long thing. It's just like the facts are the facts. The history is the history. Let's talk about it. And if I need to talk about it to kind of in a form of like therapy, like if that is my therapy, if that is me being able to douse like those demons with truth and facts, and you can't support me in that, then there's something very wrong in that friendship in the first place.
Yeah. Edem?
Yeah, I think like for me, it's a trust thing, and it's like it's not just I personally don't just work with anyone. I work with people that like have earned that trust from me as well, and I trust them and they trust me, and I think like I can see how much they care about what I care about, and they don't just care about it for the fact of, because I think there's many ways to look at it. I think like during quarantine we've seen it with a lot of corporations that have spoken up about certain things, and they've spoken up about it and it's benefited them rather than it benefiting anyone else. And I think like the people that I work with, oftentimes they don't benefit in any like, I guess, like monetary sense, or they don't necessarily benefit in terms of like having an easy day to work. They actually put in the work because I can see how much they care about that. And I think like that's just as important, because I think like honestly, if the problem is like a bank, for example, needs to change and the manager of that bank is a white person, they need to be involved in that change as well. And I think like it's important for us to be able to, I guess, like have people in that space to be both educated and to have an example for other white people as well that are going to be, I guess, they're going to inevitably encounter people that aren't from their culture. And what do you do then? I have a friend, as a white person, you can say, I have a friend that I know they've done whatever, and they could holler at my man like, yo, bro, I'm struggling with this, or someone called me out about this, and do you know what I'm saying? Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I just said, do you know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah, no. It makes 100% sense, because I think the thing is that people inherently, most of the time, listen to people that look like them. So I'm more than happy to have conversations, but more time it's like, actually, can you come and collect your friend, please, and talk to your friend?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. MckNasty, I'm going to skip this question for you for a second. I want to move on to something else.
Sure.
Both the song and both of the films have a really like incredible but subtle balance between vulnerability and anger, and there's like a spectrum of emotions that kind of cross for me across both those things. Sorry, I'm just my kids are shouting in the background, by the way. I hope that they know that they could probably be heard by everybody, but it doesn't matter. How, for each of you in this work specifically, how intentional was that, and what does that mean for you as Black men?
I think that like
as Black men in the context in the context, I guess, of like the violence and oppression that is in the world, you know, like what does that balance between vulnerability and anger mean, and how's it, you know, how you've reflected it in your work?
I think being vulnerable on a normal day for me is not something that I feel like I'm extremely good at. I'm a very emotional person. I could start crying like at any point, yeah, because something just touched me and I just start bawling, yeah. I'm that guy, yeah. But there are certain spaces, and I'm gonna talk from the music point of view. So when normally if I'm playing drums, yeah, if I don't feel as competent as I'd like to, there are certain things that I know I can zone in on that cause me to sound a certain way, and I can hide behind, yeah, or just do what I got to do, and I fit in, and it works, and everyone's happy, and I bring the energy, and I'm quite charismatic, and it's all good, yeah. So being in this position here, I was like, I don't want any bass in there. I don't want any keyboards. I don't want no guitars. Like, I need to be totally open, yeah. Every take that Koji went in to go and do, he wasn't allowed to do it by himself, yeah. That caused him to feel very vulnerable, because he was like, yeah, but like, can't you just loop that part for me? And I'm like, no, that's not the conversation. The conversation is that we go in, and whatever you're saying, I need to be able to respond to it in the moment, yeah. Like, you need to say something and it causes me to go like this, or I play something and it makes you feel slightly uncomfortable, so that the real energy and the real essence of what it is that you're trying to say, or what it is that I'm trying to put across musically, like, gets into the emotion of the music that causes the listener to really like delve in and feel the vibe and the energy of that. That's a scary thing to do as a black man, yeah, who's trying to do something that is very different, who's trying to put out some music that's trying to get on the ladder of the musical industry to be notified as a artist and not just a drummer.
Oh man.
Bro, he was spitting
Right.
too many facts.
Literally was saying a lot of stuff.
All right. What's going on?
While we wait for him to come back.
He's not using smart internet, that's why.
Well, there you go, he's in the East, isn't it? The Holy Spirit said, and wait. Kevin.
I think that's another thing. I think it's another thing that like Christopher Columbus and his boys like really tried to install. Like, it's like there is a real intersectionality when you're talking about masculinity and what masculinity means for black men. I think we're meant to be like these hard things that have no emotions, and like we don't care, and we're ready to fight, and all of these things. And I love South London like with all my heart, but it has done some things to me that for a while, let's put it this way, there is a reason why as a gay black man, people compare me to my guy from The Wire.
Oh, was that Stringer Bell?
Listen.
Yo, and if they knew, they'll be like, yo, listen, he ain't nothing like that guy.
But that was a point in time, right, where there were certain things I had to do, because like I think you go to Croydon now and it's all cute with their markets and la-di-da-di-da, but Croydon wasn't about that life in the early 90s. Like, Croydon was very much wild, and Croydon was very much wild, and Croydon was very much wild, and people were getting popped left, right, and center. And so you have to do what you have to do, and then you start to like really invest in your art, and you realize that art is an option, and you realize that photography is an option, and you realize that you're allowed to make films, and just all of these things. And then you start to unlearn, and you start to realize like, like I don't actually have to fight you. I can just leave. Like, I can leave the situation.
Walk away.
Yeah, like fully. Like, like Josh is there like really laughing, but there were some madnesses that I was properly in that, like, again, my ancestors fully saved me. I should not be here. And there were some things that I've done that were very, very wild, but they were done out of survival. And when you look back over, like, at that point in time, what the Tories were doing, basically what they're doing now, and all the rest of it, and like how it's impacted, it's like, none of this is my fault. You then look at, like, my relationship with my father isn't the greatest of ones, but there is a part of me that has to, like, not allow him, but also understand the things that he came through to get through.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's all of these things, and for me, like especially in that short for this, and anything that I do, I try to put like vulnerability in there, just to be like, yo, like you're allowed to like not want to fight, you know. You're allowed to not have all the words. You're allowed to not beef. You're allowed to just like walk away. You're allowed to like give up. Like you don't have to have all the answers all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to keep on pumping out there and saying and allowing people to just be who they are. I love being black. I would not trade it for anything else. It's the dopest thing in the world to me. It's so dope. So dope.
Yeah.
But equally, I'm allowed in this world to ask for space to figure out what my definition of blackness is and what it is for me.
Yeah.
So does that mean like, I've said this before, does that mean like I eat steak and like it's medium rare? Does that mean that like all these things are like that's very white? It's like there's no such thing. Like we can all do what we want to do.
Edem, yeah, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I think especially just like you're a bit younger than all of us, and I think that there's a lot of preconceptions about black men your age specifically.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I know for myself, it's taken a long time to recognize the power of vulnerability, to see that in your work at this point, like in the knowing a little bit about kind of like the environment of South London, of like how do you feel like you've arrived at that point where you're expressing that, and is it intentionally expressed in your work?
Yeah. Well, I think like chronologically, I'm young, but like I'm an old man on the inside secretly.
Yes.
But
like
Yoda.
And that, like.
Yeah, man. I think like for me, like it, and I've probably had more time to think about it than everyone else. So it's like it might sound more concise, but like I think it's like anger is like the fuel, but like the vulnerability is like the language that connects to people.
Yeah.
So like if you're angry about something, that's what's gonna make you get up and go do something about it. But I think for it to land on people's ears the way that it needs to, you need to be vulnerable. And I think for me at the moment, and it might change, but I just speak about things that I know, things that I've experienced, and things that I've been around. And I think that is what I've seen being something that connects to other people. And so if I want this to change, if I want people to be able to take a second thought when they're going to talk to that person in the workplace that has that accent or has this color of skin or talks in this way or dresses in this way, and I want you to think twice about it, I'm going to speak from a perspective of something that I've experienced or something that my parents have experienced or something that my friends have experienced. And I know that through that level of humanity so far, what I've seen is that connects. So I think like I just use that. I do get angry, but like I'm not necessarily outwardly expressive of that in that way. I just get angry to do things, and then I just go and make things.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just quickly gonna for anyone who is watching this, if you have any questions, we don't have much time. We're running out of time. I've just asked if we can extend it for a little bit. If there are some questions from the audience, there were one or two more questions that I wanted to ask here, but start putting them in the chat you have access to, and we'll filter through them and try and answer a few of them before we close up. I just wanted to come to that, what you just said, in the context of what's currently happening in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And obviously this is a very recent thing, and it wasn't part, or it wasn't part of the reason the song was released or any of these films were made, but it also was. And I guess, how do you feel that art plays a role in kind of galvanizing and giving voice to kind of acts of protest by any group of people, but by Black people specifically? And we'll start with MckNasty on this one.
I just feel like, like your art, yeah, or your superpower, whether that's using a camera, whether that's being an instrumentalist, a singer, or painting, or whatever it is, yeah, your superpower is a responsibility, right? And your responsibility in lots of ways are to bring awareness, yeah? And I just feel like some of the things that were spoken on this record, like, you know, this particular record was recorded like 2 years ago. You understand? Yeah. And going through the motions of like, you know, finishing records and doing blah, 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 like it came to this point where we then released. What I'm saying that to say this, that there were some things that are spoken in this record that were penetrating the atmosphere, almost being prophetic as like things to come, yeah? Do you know what I mean? And my thing is that like, let's not be kind of like all politically correct right now. Let's say what we need to say and do what we need to do, because somebody somewhere needs to hear the real of what's going on, and it can't be a conspiracist thing like, oh man, them man down there's conspiracy theories. But then to look at now, whereby, you know, you got this whole kind of like George Floyd stuff and this coronavirus stuff, and now this stuff's popping off in like Nigeria and all of it, and it's just like, this is just crazy. And I just feel like, yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. Like, just, we got a responsibility. It's a responsibility. It's not just a gift and a talent and a money maker. It's a definite responsibility to bring awareness. And like, the more that I'm filled with what I'm filled with, is the more that I can pull it out and bring more awareness. If that kind of answers the question a little bit. Yeah.
Kevin?
What's the question?
The question is, in light of what's happening currently in Nigeria, I don't want to get into too much about like the actual political situation there, because I don't feel like I know enough. Because I think it's very layered, multi-layered situation. But in terms of art giving a voice and galvanizing like protest and the protest of people collectively, how do you see the role of that?
Sorry.
Go on.
Sorry,
The church finger.
Sorry, I'm just so sorry. But a lyric just came back to me, yeah? You see when he says, dash away the dash cam, see no evil, hear no evil, it's a like, what's going on outside? Relax. Like, fake news, but who's teaching the facts? Like, I'm so grateful for this thing called social media, like, and being able to, like, you know what I mean? But like,
The reason why I had to ask the question again is because I was just taken aback by the fact that this was recorded 2 years ago. I thought you man did it this year.
No.
The way that he's talking and everything.
You feel me? Like,
yeah.
That was another question. It's just like the fact that that song was written 2 years ago says something about the way in which the world has been and is being.
Right.
You know?
I think that art is the only kind of language that we have available to us to kind of speak out against these things, because art does two things. It tells the truth and it brings people together. This is why them bumholes in Parliament at the moment are trying to squash it.
Bro! Oh, allow it.
That's why they're trying to bun it out, because it's like, allow it. That's why they take away from funding in arts. That's why, because then what are you left with? Because if people don't have a space to express their passions and dance out their passions and their things, they're just kind of empty.
They're down and filled with fear, and they can be controlled.
Yeah, and there's no space for empathy to be like, this is going on over there. And there's no space for like real education and moving forward. So it's mad important. It's mad important. And I think another thing quickly I wanted to say is that, like, when people talk about what's going on now, I don't want to hear any more about 2020. Like, we have to call the thing what it is. It's not a year magically doing this to us. It's capitalism. It's the way that we do business. It's the way that we hate each other. It's what we're doing to the planet. It's all forms of Babylon.
Yeah, it didn't just spring up and happen in 2020.
Yeah, like
it's been happening,
and
which is why Not Nice was made 2 years ago, because it's been happening.
Right, exactly. Yeah, moving on to Edem, because I know we haven't got all the time in the world.
Edem.
Yeah, I think like probably to speak more to like the place of art within what's going on. I think like it is there's a time for everything, and I think like it doesn't necessarily need to be, every song doesn't necessarily need to be a not nice that is, I guess, in heavy subject matter. Because I think something that I loved about Morosky's film is that like there's a kid at the end eating a chip, like enjoying life, and you know what I'm saying, there's those people just like twerking on the sidewalk as well. And I think like there's a place and there's a time for everything, and there's different types of art for everything. There's art for the revolution, there's art for grieving, and there's art for healing.
Yeah.
And I think like when it's time to cry, like you can listen to art that will soothe you, but when it's time to heal, you can listen to something that's going to uplift you as well. And I think like whatever you do, if you do it like to the best of your ability, and if you do it with good intention, I think like it will find its place within that matrix there.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I think that all of those expressions in the context of what's happening in the world are forms of protest and resistance in and of themselves. Do you know what I mean? For a little black boy to feel safe eating chips and be smiling, it says a lot in the context of what's happening in the world. And I think it's important to always remember that. It can be very easy, I think, for artists, especially who are by nature very empathetic, to be affected by what's happening in the world and feel like if their work isn't focused on a particular area or a particular, that it's not contributing what's needed right now. But the truth is that you make what you need to make right now, and at the right point, it will speak to people in the right way. And I think this song again is an important example of that. And there will be time for healing and time for joy and time for, and I'm really like hoping that we will see that manifestation. I think, especially like, I think it's crazy that at the moment that Nigeria is becoming so prominent through art, through Afro beats. A lot of the artists are blowing up. They've got voice all around the world. They're on Beyonce's record. They're like, and a lot of their music doesn't necessarily do like the fella thing and speak to the politics of the country. It speaks to all kinds of different experiences, which are really relevant. Yet this is a real experience that they're having. And I just feel like it's important to not dismiss the forms of art that don't necessarily speak to protest as if they're not protesting in and of themselves. Yeah, I don't know if we have any questions. Let me just check.
Wow.
How you guys, how are you finding it? I don't want to kind of go on too much. Just quick question, one, and it's a yes or no, not even a yes or no question. Black History Month or just Black History, Edem?
Well, was that a question?
Yeah, that's a question. Black History Month or just Black History?
I mean, there's a place for both, innit? Like Black History Month is a good thing to have, I feel like.
Yeah, all right. That was essentially the question. Kevin?
I think it's both. I think it's Black History in general. It should be every month, and like it should just be all the way through. I think there is a real thing that happens with Black History though. Like I will talk to you lot about Black History and get gassed, but then also if it's anyone outside the diaspora or culture, it's like I don't really give that satisfaction out loud, if that makes sense. I'm like, but I think it's for us internally to get gassed about. But with that being said, like I've been making like a film every week for like Black History Month, and because it's a space to be able to talk to everybody and do things. Like if you look at those films, I'm specifically talking to us.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for anyone else to like witness and be involved and like
learn from it, but that's not your.
Yeah.
MckNasty.
Black. Yo, you see that part?
Well, on that
note, power, that black. That when she says that, my whole body just goes, wow.
That is the goal, though. That is the goal. Like, I'm
Just
not.
relax, like.
Just
Like,
remember, literally, just remembering. Like, just remembering. That's all it is. Like that talk about like, oh, so are you better than this or la 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 la? It's like it's not even that. Like we're just trying to get back to.
Yeah.
There's something in all of us that screams like
Could
we
I just
know
say,
we are
yeah?
of worth.
Go on.
Can I just say, yeah? Like, I understand what you mean when you say get back to, but like, my thing is like you already are because you exist. You're here. You just is. Like you know, you get what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah.
If we can try to somehow maintain that mentality because it's there, it's somewhere in there, we just ain't being about it. Like because it's not about getting back. We just is. Like if I can be so kind of.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you, and I think that's an incredible statement. I have one more question. And there are no questions that have come through from the audience as yet. So I just have one more question. It's not gone unnoticed to me and in the kind of curation of this event that you're all men. And obviously the kind of final lines of your film, Kevin, say protect Black women. I want to know what that means to you.
I just think like in a recent in one of the Black History Month films that I did like last week, it kind of ends in a space just asking all Black men to remember their first homes, which were Black women. So it's a no-brainer to me. I think in some ways I'm probably a little bit privileged because my grandmother was your skin tone Umpa, and my grandfather was Edem. And then throughout my family, in terms of my sisters, aunts, whatever, it was both. So growing up, that conversation around light skin, black skin wasn't a thing. Everyone was just dope.
That's interesting because that can often happen in families. That can often be the opposite.
Yeah, but that wasn't the thing. It was just like it is what it is. And to answer your question about Black women, I think there was our first home, and I think also that I think I talk more loudly about it now just because I just assumed everybody kind of thought the way that I did. And I'm like, oh no. And in the same way that I was saying that I think it's for white people to have a conversation with white people because it's really not my job to educate you on how to like behave decently. I don't think it's Black women do so much for us. Like the bare minimum I can do is talk to my brother and say, bruv, that you're moving mad, or grab a Tory Lanez and slap the shit out of him.
Wow. Cool. Edem? We have a question, so I wanna.
Yeah, I feel like Kevin said most of what needs to be said. Really, like, so I don't even need to talk and take.
Say anything more. Okay. All right. But first and only question, it seems, from the audience. Do you think music can truly evoke real change in this day and age? I've been feeling quite cynical this past year. 2020 is mad.
I think music has been making change for generations. Yeah. And I feel like just like you said, Kevin, that there's I just feel like there's an agenda, that the more there isn't this thing that spiritually binds us together, If we're in a festival together, first of all, this kind of like notion of like stay away from one another, don't talk to one another, don't be in an environment with one another, we just lost Umpa, right? All of that is something within itself. However, like this thing called music, whether you're a Black man, I'm a white man, white lady, whatever, the moment we get together and we start singing together like this, you forgot that, like, I don't really like black people. I don't really like white people. I don't eat chicken like this. I eat chicken like that. There's just an instant connection that happens. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Like that kind of just supersedes who you think you are or what you believe you are. It just, there's just an instant thing. And I feel like there's an agenda to like kind of separate all of that. So this person that's feeling like, yo, man, I feel a bit cynical about whether things can be changed or blah, blah. I hear why you feel that way, but I believe that it's for us as creatives to delve deep inside and be like, not accept those boundaries or those things that's been kind of, that's where I'm at. And I don't think it's got anything to do with being rebellious. Like, it's just, yeah, that's my take on it.
I hear what you're saying, but in a way, kind of disagree controversially.
Yes, please.
So I think there are those beautiful moments, and I think where music can truly heal is in terms of like me, myself, and I.
Sure.
So like, it can put you in a different space. It can bring you to different things to kind of look at things, right?
Sure.
But in terms of like real change within society, I think that in what you're talking about is almost like, in my head anyway, is like putting a plaster on like a bullet wound. Because after that music is done, people are still doing mad things and people are still appropriating and
sure,
like, and doing those things. So I think there is a space for that. I think there's a couple of steps before that. But with that being said, those real moments do exist and it is lovely, but it's whether people then after that moment feel like raw. Because there are fully like 60, 70-year-old white men right now who are the most racist, but feel like they've done their part because they've got all of Bob Marley's albums on their record shelf over there. Gassed. I love Bob Marley. What? So, you know, so I think it's a bit of both. I do think music can bring people together. Josh is finished. I do think music can bring people together because I've seen it in our own dances. There is like a spiritual thing that happens when a certain song. Come on now, if we were all out and like get low, I don't know what my obsession with Little John is today, but Get Low got on, came on, like it'd be a moment. We could play it now and it will be a moment, you know, but it goes hand in hand.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
All right. Yeah, it goes hand in hand.
And you know what? I might be one of those people who doesn't know. I don't know whether music can or can't really, and only because I feel like I was born into the world and it was a certain way, and it'd been a certain way from before I was here, and I haven't seen any concrete change. However, I think like if you do music and music is your thing and that's your gift, if that's your superpower, then you might as well try and use it to change. Yeah. I don't know. Like all we can really do is try. Like, and what I have in my hands, whether it will or won't, I know that I'm gonna do my part to at least try and change, innit?
Exactly.
I think that's a great way to round off this conversation. Yeah, it's been incredible. Yeah. So thank you all for being here. Guys, if you are watching, people's Instas have been up here for the duration of the event. Make sure you follow Edem and Morosky, Kevin Morosky and MckNasty. You can follow me too. We might do more of these. It's our intention for this to be the beginning of something that we do around the music that we release as a label, the people we collaborate with as artists to really kind of get behind the songs and have these conversations, and the art and the visuals that are created around the music and in response. So I hope you will follow us. You can subscribe to Fireball Sessions Music on Instagram and on YouTube. This will go up on that platform at some point. It's streaming via that platform right now. I really want to say a big thank you to Blanguage, who've supported and supported this event today. We've collaborated with, and yeah, unless there's anything else specific that anybody wants to say, I just want to thank you all for being here, for really being open and contributing incredibly to this conversation. And let's hope that the art that we make and the music that we make can support people in their own progress and their own journey of change, and that one person at a time is the thing that will eventually change the world that we live in.
I have one last thing though.
Yes, please.
Like, probably like there's a reason. I think like with what probably going back to the Protect Black Women question, I think like the fact of the matter is like there's a lot of in-house conversations that need to be had, and I think something that was very cool that Kevin said was like grabbing your bro and saying like, yo, like that wasn't cool, or this needs to be done. And I think like if you're a black man, pull up the other black men and be open to being pulled up as well, because I think there's a lot of things that are in our culture, in our families, in our idea of masculinity that can't necessarily continue to persist in it. So I think like have those in-house conversations for sure.
Thank you for saying that, Edem. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
I don't want to finish, but we have to. So until next time, you can find us all on Insta. You can find Edem's film and on MckNasty's YouTube channel. For the next couple of days, Morosky's film will be played exclusively on Blanguage Online. You can find it there. And after that, it will be available on YouTube to watch. Please keep supporting the artists that you've seen tonight. Please keep supporting the art in general. Yeah, I guess we all believe that it can make a little bit of change, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's you.
Take care.
Yes, man.
Love. South London forever.
South London forever.
Peace.